What is up YouTube, and welcome back to another CZN Chaos or Nightmare video, and today I'll be sharing with you guys my experience with Yuki for the first day. Now of course, it hasn't even been a full day yet since she's released, but I did try her out quite a bit, and I want to talk about how she feels as a character to mostly tell the people out there that are waiting to summon on her if she's worth going for. Now of course, it is way too early to make a final judgment, but I will be just sharing my personal experiences on the first day. And I know a lot of people have been saying that she feels weak, so I'll be tackling that and telling you guys, what I honestly think about her. So, in terms of what she's good at, the first thing that I really like about her is her background at Affinity 10 is S tier, top notch actually, so, if you're really looking for a good background character, she's really good for it. Is that going to warrant you to pull for her? Probably not, but it's one of my favorite backgrounds in the game, so I really like that about her. On top of that, she's a very fun character to play. So her playstyle really revolves around drawing cards, and you want to really abuse this by abusing the inspiration effect on your cards, right? When you draw that card using a drawing card, you will be able to proc this inspiration or activate this inspiration and get an extra effect, which is very crucial to her kit. So you really want to pair her with drawing supports. She's really good when you draw with her because, like I said, you will just get extremely good benefits when doing it. So very fun combos to do. Her kit works very well with drawing supports, like I said. If you actually have a partner known as Nyx, this is also going to be extremely good for her because the ego skill will discard up to 3 cards, and then you can draw up to 4, right, if you discarded 3 total, because it's +1 equal to the number discarded. So you'll be able to use this and, proc your inspiration very easily. It makes her very, very easy to, activate these inspirations. So this is the build that I've been running my Yuki on. Obviously, it's not a late game build. It's literally been like one day. But essentially what I found to be really good is you really need this Prepare to Subdue copied. And I did get very lucky and got a Divine Epiphany on it. And I actually have another deck which I farmed, which also gives me the same thing. So I found like these 2 decks. I don't know which one's better yet, but I believe this one just because of the Forbidden card. But, both setups are very good. You just really want to play around this Prepare to Subdue. It just makes her very, very powerful. On top of that, you really want multiple copies of her damage cards because you are drawing a lot. So I found this to be pretty good. And also this upgrade for Freezing Blade is also amazing because it just allows you to do a decent amount of single target. So this is basically what I've been running her on in terms of memory fragments. I have her on this setup. Is it the best setup? Definitely not. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. So in terms of the positives, the good things about her, I think that's pretty much it. She's very fun to play. So if you're looking for a fun character, and she's pretty waifu, right? Waifu AF, then this is the character for you. However, I will say that she does have some negative aspects about her kit, like every single character does in this game. I think it's too early to say she's bad and write her off. A lot of people are kind of like dooming about her, saying she's terrible. I don't think she's really terrible, but I will explain the problems I've encountered when using her. She's alright, honestly, but she's not on the levels of Giga OP, like Meilin and also like Kalipe, and even like Hugo for Chaos runs. And the biggest problem I find with her is that the memory fragments feel awkward for her. Not just for her, but for Hugo. So like I mentioned, this build isn't the best build, and it's mostly because the order set memory fragment is pretty awkward because you have to keep using attack cards, and even though it's actually decent on her, it doesn't feel too impactful. In fact, you might be better off just running a setup that my Renoa's on, where you're on, I think it's on 222. Oh, I took it off, but basically it would be something like this. So this is what I actually had her on. It would be 222, and this would probably be decent. The reason why is because, yeah, like I said, you have to spam attack cards for this to ramp up, and by the time this already ramps up, you are out of AP. And you're not going to be pairing her with Mika for the most part when you're farming because you're going to be using drawing supports. So it just makes it pretty awkward. It does work okay if you have the setup like I have, where you have the AP bonus, but you do need a Divine Epiphany for this, and you do want to copy it. So it is pretty awkward to gear her, but not really a character thing. It's just the order element just has a pretty weak set, so that is what it is. Now the big thing about her though is because she's an AoE centered character, you would think that she would be good in Chaos at clearing stuff. The thing is, she's not that good in Chaos. What I found is until you unlock like some specific epiphanies, she ends up being pretty weak. She feels kind of like Kayron. Like in the beginning of the run, she feels lackluster, and then she gets better later on. But her AoE damage it's decent, but her single target is where she starts to falter a bit. She can do about like 4k in like a single turn if you do have a good setup. But the thing is, like, a lot of characters in this game right now can do this earlier on into the run and do even more damage. So that is why it feels pretty awkward. They also don't need as much investment in terms of potential and memory fragments like Yuki does, because mine's pretty much maxed out. If we look at my potential, you can see, you know, I have a ton of investment into her already. So in terms of like her damage, it definitely feels a bit low. I do think it needs to be tuned a little, just because, you know, it just feels not that great, right? She doesn't really have something like Haru, which can boost her single target while doing AoE. She kind of just does AoE and does like minimal single target damage, just because all of her skills are basically going to be AoE. And this rapid slash, you only get one in your deck most of the time, so it's not going to really be able to carry your single target damage. So she does feel a bit awkward in Chaos. I tried running her with like the meta comp, and what I mean by the meta comp is something that can draw for her, because these characters can activate her inspiration. But I also found that doing this just makes it really hard, because the drawing supports in Chaos are pretty weak in the early stages, mostly because they just don't have enough power in terms of their cards in the base kit. But when they do get their decks built, their save data built up, then they become very powerful, right? They're not like a Mika where you can just plug and play in the early game and they're just super OP. These drawing supports such as Nia and also Cassius are just not that good in the early, like not early, but the late game difficulties of Chaos. They really struggle in the early stages, if that makes sense. The only one that's like decent is Veronica with her, which I don't really use, but Veronica I've seen have a lot of success with Yuki. But from what I've heard is, like, when you run her with Veronica, it feels like Veronica's carrying her. This is what I've heard. And you can pretty much slot in a different character, like Mei Lin even, instead of Yuki, and it just feels a lot better. So, yeah. That is kind of it with Yuki. I think, you know, she does need some help in terms of damage. Is she massively undertuned? I don't really think so. Like, her damage is still okay. She's definitely serviceable. You could probably use her into the highest difficulties. I think she's still better than some of the 5-star DPSs in the game. But like I said, it just feels kind of awkward using her right now, but she is very fun to play. And I think, you know, it just feels very awkward because this season is catered towards scaling content, like longer fights. And she doesn't have anything in her kit to help with ramping damage, like something like a Keiron does, something like Renoa does, something like, you know, I guess those are the two most obvious characters, but like even like Beryl and Orlia. So it just makes it so that she does feel a bit weak. I won't say that she's definitely weak though. I think people are still experimenting. Like I said, this is just my day one impression, and I wanted to let you guys know just because a lot of people are actually asking me if they should pull for her, how many dupes they should pull for her. I think one copy is fine. Having one of each character is cool. But in terms of like heavy investment, I would still wait, and you know, I'll test a lot more builds on her. But I think currently, from the small sample size that I have, but the large sample size from the entire community, the consensus is that she does feel like a mediocre character. Not in a bad way, but just like a balanced character. Nothing too OP, nothing like game-breakingly weak, right? So yeah, all I wanted to say today though about Yuki. Thank you for watching, guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about her. I think she's pretty cool. I've been running her with Mika and Kalipe in Chaos, and she's been doing fine. But hopefully, you know, I do find a build that makes her better, or they might even hotfix buff her. Who really knows? If the community complains enough, I think the devs might actually buff her. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.